The ancient mysteries of the world contain tons of completely lost civilizations, peoples, pieces of knowledge, you name it, there's probably something of it lost to history. In this video, we'll cover a Eurasian tribe that was completely lost to time, ancient celestial knowledge that's even more advanced than what we have today, and of course, a few words in our current religious texts that mean absolutely nothing to us because they've been completely wiped from history. You'll get all that and much more in this lost volume of the Ancient Mysteries of the World Iceberg V2. Let's get into it right now. I think it's only fair that we start this video about lost ancient mysteries with a people that were almost lost to time, the Xiongnu. The Xiongnu were a tribe of nomadic people that lived in the eastern part of the Eurasian steppe from around the 3rd century BC through the 1st century AD. Basically everything we know about them comes from ancient Chinese texts because they were a great enemy to the Chinese. Have you ever heard of the Great Wall of China? Well, the Chinese fighting against the Xiongnu prompted them to build a lot of the Great Wall of China because the Xiongnu were so devastating in their attacks. It was literally a centuries-long conflict. Now, the Xiongnu did exist before the 3rd century BC. They were around in like the 5th century BC, but they weren't really dangerous until the 3rd. A lot like the ancient Mongolians who would come like 1200 years after these people were also horseback archers. It's said that they would gather up to 300,000 horseback archers at a time to go invade China. That's crazy. If you know anything at all about everything that went on in that Eurasian steppe and in the ancient Chinese area, any of that, you know that that stuff was absolutely crazy. The Xiongnu, we really don't even know who they went on to be, where they went, what happened to them. They split up into 2 different factions. Some of them went on to be in China and the rest of them went on somewhere else. Some people think that they were actually the Huns that invaded Rome in the 5th century. I don't think that's true, but it's possible, I guess. The thing is, these people had an empire in that Eurasian steppe for like 300 to 400 years or so. That was incredibly long-lived for a group of people back in those days. When you look at the ancient references of them, they have so many different linguistic links to other cultures that we really don't know who they were, who they went on to be, any of that stuff. There are theories out there that says that they were Iranian, Turkish, Yanisian, which I don't really even know who that is, but also Mongolian, everything like that. The Mongolian link makes the most sense to me because the culture was kind of the same. They had horseback archers, they were in the same area, all that good stuff. They were very similar to the Scythians, which we actually talked about in another video very recently. They were kind of in the same area. I can't tell you exactly who they were and exactly who they went on to be because we really just don't know, and if the researchers and everybody like that doesn't know, I sure don't know because I'm an idiot. Let me know who you think the Xiongnu were. The mystery of the Sumerian King List. The Sumerian King List is a list of all the ancient rulers of all the ancient city-states of ancient Mesopotamia. How many times can I say ancient in one sentence? Guess we'll find out. It's literally a list of all the different kings that ruled and when they ruled. The thing is, it dates back all the way to like 2900 BC, which was supposedly before the ancient flood of the Bible. It goes from then all the way through around 1650 BC or so. That's probably when it was created. It was written in ancient Sumerian on clay tablets. Here's the cool thing about this. In the years before the Great Flood supposedly happened, all the kings that ruled for a very long time, like mythically long. Some of these kings literally ruled for thousands of years, and that's even like biblical or extra biblical. That's a long time. After the flood supposedly happened, the dates get more realistic. Alright, so before the flood, there were literally ancient Mesopotamian gods that supposedly ruled over the people. The ancient Mesopotamian god Dumuzid was said to have ruled over the people for a certain amount of time. Besides that, there was also a king that supposedly ruled for over 43,000 years. All the time of those reigns before the flood adds up to over 240,000 years. I don't care who you are. That's crazy. In just a second, I'm going to tell you why this section probably exists. As I said, after the flood, they get more realistic and it's actual kings that are recorded in history. Scholars say that this is one of the first attempts at recording chronological history. So these were like the first historians. Now, conspiracy theorists, definitely not like me or anything, they think that this leads to some forbidden knowledge that was forgotten from ancient civilizations. So basically, you just circle back around to Atlantis and all the ancient civilizations that might have happened, that might have been lost to history. The Graham Hancock stuff. Now, the more accepted and probably correct theory is that the Sumerian King List was more of a propaganda for the ruling dynasties of the time. So what does that mean? The people that wrote these tablets obviously included the people that were ruling then and how long they ruled, all that good stuff. Their dynasties. The stuff before the flood was the stuff that was commonly accepted in society at that time as being true. So whenever you tie ancient legends to current people, you get the common people around that don't know any better thinking that these dynasties of the time descended from these legends, that they truly deserved to rule. I mean, there were literally gods that they said ruled before the flood, so the people in the current time should treat their kings like gods, right? That's probably what was going on there. But what do I know? I'm just a 24-year-old dude who talks about stupid stuff on the internet. Just real quick, thank you guys so much for watching. You have absolutely no idea how much it means to me. If you're enjoying this video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It helps me out a lot. And now, let's get back into it. Noah's Ark in Mount Ararat. Obviously, this entry is going to talk about Noah's Ark during the Great Flood. More specifically, where it came to rest. If you don't know the biblical account of the Great Flood, basically God decided to flood the earth because everybody was evil. Everybody but Noah. Noah and his wife and his sons and their wives. Them and 2 of every animal boarded on an ark. This ark survived the complete flooding of the world. Now, Genesis chapter 8. But God remembered Noah and all the wild animals and the livestock that were with him in the ark, and he sent a wind over the earth, and the waters receded. Now the springs of the deep and the floodgates of the heavens had been closed, and the rain had stopped falling from the sky. The water receded steadily from the earth. At the end of the 150 days, the water had gone down, and on the 17th day of the 7th month, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. The waters continued to recede until the 10th month, and on the first day of the 10th month, the tops of the mountains became visible. Now, Mount Ararat, Noah's Ark. That's what we're talking about right here. It literally says right here that the ark came to rest in the mountains of Ararat, which is in Turkey. For thousands of years, people have believed this biblical account, but the thing is, nobody's actually found it until recently. We might have. It didn't matter that nobody had found it for thousands and thousands of years. Everybody just believed it was there. Back in the days before science and archaeology and everything was huge, everybody just had blind faith. Locals from the area of Mount Ararat have said that they constantly find like wooden remains, stuff that probably was part of that great wooden ark. But that doesn't prove anything. There have constantly been hoaxes about actually finding this thing. The most promising of all the old findings and sightings is the Darupanar site. This is a massive 538-foot formation of limonite, or however you pronounce that was in eastern Anatolia or Turkey. That's the same area of the Mount Ararat mountains. Tons of people believe that this is literally just the ark, but it's formed over by the earth's processes over those thousands and thousands of years. Actually, the Islamic faith itself in the Qur'an states that Al-Qudi, or this mountain right here, this formation, is where the ark is. There are these stones called the Arzab stones that were found near this site that people believe were literally just weights, like anchors for the giant ark in the rough seas. They all have holes cut in the tops of them, which would be perfect for a rope to go through to, you know, hold down a boat as an anchor. The ancient Babylonian story, the Epic of Gilgamesh, has its own accounting of this great flood. It says that stones just like this were used to hold some sort of ark steady in the water. I could yap about this entry for an entire video, but I'm gonna stop right here because that's basically all you need to know. Nobody really knows where the ark was. They just don't. There's been no concrete evidence of it being found or it even being real, as sad as that is to say because I am a Christian, but that is what it is. The Turkish authorities actually forbid excavation in these areas of Mount Ararat, so honestly, we might not ever find it until something changes over there. It's pretty sad if you ask me. The Unfinished Obelisk. If you aren't familiar with what an obelisk is, it's basically a 4-sided rectangular tall pillar with a pyramid on top. It's some sort of ancient monument type thing. These were very common in ancient Egypt, most of the time used to signify worship of some of their gods. I think most of the time it was actually the sun god Ra that this symbolized. Now this unfinished obelisk is an obelisk that was found still in its quarry, obviously unfinished, in Aswan, Egypt. Its creation was probably ordered by Hatshepsut, who was the ruler of Egypt in like 1500 BC or so. Here's the thing, this thing was huge. The tallest Egyptian obelisk ever is known as the Lateran obelisk, and it was 150 feet tall. This one was 137 feet tall, or it would have been. The difference comes in the length and the width of the volume equation. This thing is so big that it would have weighed around 1,200 tons. The other one, that Lateran, only weighs like 455 tons. That's a big difference. They started carving this thing out of literal bedrock, and eventually it started cracking, which is why they just abandoned it. This thing would have been awesome, though. Hatshepsut was a female pharaoh with a really cool story. She literally took control of Egypt as a pharaoh, as a woman, by dressing as a man. This is some Mulan type stuff. It would have been awesome if this largest obelisk ever would have been erected by a woman who was infiltrating the male role of pharaoh. She was breaking societal norms way back then. It was really cool to see. Now, because this thing was unfinished, you could literally see where these workers were working on it. You could see how they did stuff. It provides a glimpse into their stoneworking techniques and stuff like that we just didn't have any clue clue about before. If this thing would have actually been completed, I know that it would have been studied like the pyramids and the Sphinx and all that good stuff, because it's just awesome. What exactly does Selah mean? Selah is a word used in the Hebrew Bible 74 times, most of the time in Psalms. The crazy thing about this word is that not even ancient biblical scholars knew what this word meant in these contexts. There's lots of theories about it, but none of them are concrete because we just don't know. We don't go that far back. Because it's used so many times in Psalms, it's probably something to do with music. Some think that in this musical context, it might mean to stop and listen, or to pause, or to wait, something like that. Or to lift up. There's tons of musical interpretations. It's commonly seen as being said before a new paragraph, so it might be something like that, like pause, or to lift up before you sing the next verse. Some scholars believe that it was actually an instruction for the ancient musicians of the ancient temples to actually follow. Like they knew what it meant, but we don't. That's really all we know about it. It probably is used in this musical context, but we just don't know what it means for sure. Kanye West might though, because he uses it as the title of one of his songs. Ye says that it means to look back and reflect upon, so obviously that's what it means, right? We have to go with Kanye's word. He's right about everything. No, but seriously, that's all I know about it. That's pretty much all I could find on the internet. So if you know something that I don't know, tell me about it. The Babylonian Map of the world. As the name implies, this is literally the earliest known map of the ancient world. It was Babylonian. It was written in cuneiform in around the 7th or 8th century BC. As most ancient societies did, the ancient Babylonians believed that Babylon was the center of the known world. This clay tablet map shows Babylon as the center with all the outer lands around it. It shows the Euphrates River, the sea, everything that was known to the people back then, but also mythological lands. It depicts a bunch of mythological beasts that were supposedly present in the ancient Babylonian religion or mythos. It talks about how the world was created by Marduk, who was their god. It talks about these different beasts that were exiled to the sea, a bunch of good stuff like that. Really juicy, actually. The funniest thing about this map is that these people definitely knew who the Persians and Egyptians were. Like, I think they traded with them back then. They purposefully excluded them from this map because Babylon was the center of the world. These people were the main character of their own story. In general, it's pretty cool because this thing conflates mythology with reality. So there's literal actual Babylon, and there's mythological lands that may or may not exist. There's beasts, there's all this crazy stuff, but that's how they viewed the world. Viewed, not viewed. That's not a word. They viewed the world as their mythology. What they believed was true in their minds. And I guess the same can be said for all the different religions of the time. Like the ancient Egyptians believed that Ra was the sun god. We just talked about that obelisk thing. Nowadays, we just call this mythology, but back then, that was the reality for them. That's something that we don't think about today, even though it may be going on. I'm a Christian, so I truly do believe that Jesus was the Son of God and God created the world, all that kind of stuff. But honestly, I could be in the same boat as these people. My reality is everything that went on in the Christian faith, especially the New Testament. Reality for these people is that Marduk created the world and the Epic of Gilgamesh was real and all these mythological beasts were real. Thousands of years down the line, people may look back at us as Christians and, you know, Islamic people and Jewish people, everybody, and say that we were in the same boat as them. We just didn't realize it. That's kind of mind-blowing to me, and the fact that I get to even contemplate this kind of stuff by talking about random things in ancient Babylon is crazy. How did the ancient Sumerians know so much about our solar system? All right, we've been talking about the ancient Mesopotamians this entire time. So the ancient Sumerians started in around 5500 BC in Mesopotamia. There you go. So how did they know so much about our solar system? Well, first you got to know what they did know about our solar system, right? They knew that there were 10 planets in our solar system. Now, I don't know about you, but I know that there's Mercury, Earth, Mars, Venus, Uranus, Neptune, Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto, if you consider that a planet, right? That's 9. And there's no more. But they thought there was. There was an ancient planet called Tiamat that was destroyed and turned into our asteroid belt. Now, is that true? I don't know. But here's the thing. We didn't know that Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto even existed until 300 years ago. So how did these people know about it 5,000 years, 7,000, however many thousand years ago that was? Did these people have crazy high-powered telescopes way back then? Probably not, because we didn't find anything that closely resembled that at all. We do know that the ancient Sumerians were very advanced. They had the Hammurabi Code, they had different tools, they had crazy stuff back then, but a telescope, I mean, come on. Say what you want to about them, but they literally did build ziggurats as observatories. They had a lunar calendar. They tracked celestial bodies in catalogs. They really did. They were crazy. They're definitely a lot smarter than I am, if you want to know the truth about it. Now, let's circle back to that mythical planet that supposedly existed way back when. Could it be that it exploded and became our asteroid belt? It's off the wall, but Possibly. See, if this thing exploded into a bunch of asteroids and just celestial mass flying everywhere, it would have crashed into the planets. It would have crashed into moons. Some of it would have formed a gravitational belt like the asteroid belt. So yeah, it could have happened. There are giant craters on some of the planets, and this really would explain it. There's lots of meteors moving around our solar system to this day, while some of them probably would have disintegrated by now, but it's kind of crazy. This stuff could be true, and how these people knew about it, we just don't know. Through all the research that I've done, and pretty much everybody else has done, nobody knows how they knew so much about our solar system, possibly more than we even know today. It almost makes you think that there was some sort of ancient civilization that was very advanced and knew more than we know today. But that's just me being a conspiracy theorist. The Muqatta'at. I'm definitely saying that wrong. Whatever that word is, it means mysterious letters at the beginnings of several different chapters in the Qur'an. At the beginnings of 29 of the 114 chapters of the Islamic book, the Qur'an, there are literally disjointed letters that mean absolutely nothing that we know about at the start of the chapter. Now, it probably did mean something way back when the book was written, but this has kind of been lost in translation, literally. There are a bunch of them that are interpreted to be names for God or something like that. Now, I'm going to read a few of these, but they don't make sense to me anyway because I don't understand the Arabic language, anything like that, and you probably don't either, but here's some of them. Alif Lam Mim, Alif Lam Ra, Alif Lam Mim Ra, and there's just a whole bunch of them. I'm not going to keep doing this because it's just going to get old, but still, nobody knows what these mean. They're not real words. Some theories say that they introduce some sort of rhyme that's supposed to be part of a spell or something supernatural. Some say that they could be divine codes or abbreviations for something that's actually important, or just mysterious codes that we're supposed to decipher or something like that, but who knows? Some scholars have even tried to make these mathematical, like make them mean something numerically, but they just really don't. This is one of those things that might be solved by AI, but I'm really not hopeful for it. There are lots of mysteries kind of like this in the Quran, and most of them are just not going to be solved probably ever. If you know more about the Quran and about these disjointed letters, you should let me know because I really have no idea. It makes no sense to me. The Heslington Brain. The Heslington Brain is a 2,600-year-old human brain preserved in its skull in England. More specifically, Heslington in Yorkshire in England. This thing is thought to be the most well-preserved brain of all time. To make the story behind this brain short, what we know is that this guy was probably hanged and then decapitated, and then just his skull was buried there in Heslington. We never found his actual body. This guy was probably around 30 years old, and he was probably some sort of ritual sacrifice if we had to guess. Now, this thing wasn't actually found until 2008. The area that it was found in had been the subject of many excavations and archaeological digs because there were ritualistic objects and stuff like that found buried in the area. Like, something they found pretty close to this body was the headless body of a red deer. So they were decapitating everything out here, apparently. Now, why this brain was so well preserved has to do with the fact that it was decapitated from the rest of the body, so it didn't decompose as quickly. One thing that makes bodies decompose so quickly is the bacteria from the gut that is just eating its way out of the dead body whenever the person dies. The fact that there was none of this, and it was literally just the skull and what was remaining in it, you know, the brain, none of that extra decomposition happened. It was just the skull buried in that dirt right there, and it was just well preserved. The soil that the head was found in had almost a complete lack of oxygen, so it didn't have anything in there to actually decompose it. It was more like waterlogged soil that was just kind of like a marsh. If you heard me talk about bodies that are found in like peat bogs and stuff like that called bog bodies, bodies are very well preserved in there because of the lack of nutrients and also the water levels, all that good stuff. That environment is very conducive to good preservation of decomposing bodies. So I guess the takeaway from this is that if you happen to off somebody or, you know, something like that, don't bury the body in a swamp or in a bog because they will find it. Also, there are certain biological functions that happen whenever a body dies, besides just the bacteria eating its way out of the gut, that actually happen whenever, you know, the person dies, that this didn't happen to for this person because he was hanged and then immediately beheaded with a knife. So I guess in a way we got lucky because we get to study this decapitated head and this brain. It was very well preserved, but the poor guy, he had it rough. He was hanged and then, you know, decapitated. So that's just unfortunate. What did Pope Leo say to Attila the Hun? So if you don't know somehow, Attila the Hun was basically the leader of the Huns and also the leader of the empire that the Huns led. It wasn't a massive empire or anything like that. It was more of like a coalition between Germanic tribes of the time. Now, he went on an absolute reign of terror. He was conquering everything and he eventually invaded Italy. He did this in the year 452, and upon that, the actual emperor of Rome sent Pope Leo and two others as envoys to try to negotiate peace with this guy. Legend has it that as soon as Attila started talking to this guy Pope Leo, he was incredibly impressed. For some reason, he decided to completely back off of Rome for good. The actual dialogue of what this guy Pope Leo said to Attila is completely lost to history. We have no idea what he said, but somehow it apparently caused him to completely back off, and he was on a reign of terror. He was gonna conquer Rome. I mean, he just was. Rome had already been sacked previously by Alaric of the Visigoths, so it was gonna happen. There's some conflicting opinions out there that say that it wasn't just what Pope Leo said that caused the dude to back off. First of all, some say that Attila's men came to Attila and told him that he needed to back off because he was gonna die like Alaric did. Alaric invaded Rome, and then like a year later, he died. They didn't want that to happen to their leader, Attila. Little did they know Attila would actually die in the year after that in 453 anyway, but it happens. Now, the other theory is that there are actual appearances of biblical saints with like massive swords and just armor, all that good stuff that appeared beside Pope Leo, and that's what scared Attila. They theorized that Rome was literally being divinely protected. Now, I don't believe this at all because there's just no writing of this in scripture, no writing of anything like this happening, especially after the time of miracles passed. I really don't know what happened. Maybe Attila did see visions of saints, but they weren't actually real. They were just in his mind because Pope Leo said something that was so scary to him, like that there was going to be divine protection, that he tricked himself into thinking it was actually there. I don't know. Now, I don't know, but you might know because you're probably smarter than me. It doesn't take much. Speaking of it not taking much, it doesn't take much effort to check out this video linked on the screen right here. This is the entire first Ancient Mysteries of the World Iceberg. It's stuff like I've been talking about here, but on steroids. I think there's over 100 entries just in that one video, so go check that out seriously right now. In the meantime, I'm gonna go on a hiking trip to Mount Ararat in Turkey. Until next time, peace.